This is Distant Replay, the podcast that goes back in time to relive all the greatest events that we witnessed in sports. From upsets, to championships, to cultural moments, we discuss it all. Coming up on today's episode.
They're in the stretch. Secretariat has opened a 22-length lead. He is going to be the Triple Crown winner. Here comes Secretariat to the wire. An unbelievable, an amazing performance. He hits the finish 25 lengths in front.
Taking you back to June 9th, 1973, that is the day that Secretariat won the Belmont Stakes and completed the Triple Crown. Welcome into Distant Replay. I am Ben George. He's Mike Noto. Bear with me today. I've got a little voice issue, but we're rolling through this thing because we're getting prepared for Belmont this weekend, and we had to go back and we're watching all these Secretariat races from 1973, the run through the Triple Crown. This one, Mike, I think this is the one that everybody sees because it completed the Triple Crown, but also how dominant it was. So I was pretty pumped to go back to this one.
Yeah, this is the most well-known of the Triple Crown races for Secretariat. By the way, Ben, I appreciate you playing through injury here.
You got it.
But, yeah, this is the most iconic one because of basically, I think, one video image and one picture image, which we'll get to later, that I kind of think have lived in sports lore, is up there with, some of the famous shots in NBA history, the home runs in Major League Baseball history. I think that's why this moment became as iconic as it has over the years. But it was great to go back and actually see, how this historic sports moment played out in real time.
Yeah, and how the race was covered in that moment. We'll do that today on the show, go through all the race today. The usual cast of characters on this horse racing coverage, we will go through that and our thoughts on the race as well. Some interesting nuggets we pulled out from this race, an interesting broadcast as well. If you haven't joined us before, you can find us online at distantreplaypodcast.com. We'll put this race up there in its entirety, so if you haven't watched it and you want to go back and see it, it's about an hour total, start to finish on coverage. So it's very easy watch, very entertaining because it just goes right into the race essentially, and then it's over. So I'll put that on the website, but also connect with us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram as well. All right, Mike, June 9th, 1973, Belmont Park. You've been to Belmont, right?
I have. Never for the Belmont Stakes,
okay.
But I have been to Belmont several times, the racetrack, yes.
So this is, and I living in Connecticut, I think one thing I always heard was if there was a Triple Crown at stake, I remember maybe a couple were at stake when I was working up there, but I always heard that it was just an incredible experience to be there when a Triple Crown was on the line.
Yeah, so I could be off on the specific numbers, but I'm pretty sure like the attendance at the race almost doubles when there's a Triple Crown at stake.
Okay.
So when there's a Triple Crown at stake, there's a lot at stake, no pun intended, for a lot of people involved. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think on a normal non-Triple Crown at stake Belmont, there might be like 60,000 people there. And when there's a Triple Crown at stake, there's like between 110 and 120,000 people there.
Yeah.
So it blows up because people want to be a part of history. People want to be at the track and have the ticket for the horse that wins the Triple Crown.
Yep. Over 69,000 people showed up for this race at Belmont, and they're ready to see Secretariat. So we jump into the coverage, Mike. Again, we get Jack Whitaker welcoming us in, right? We've become pretty familiar with Jack through this process and this team that covers horse racing back in the 70s. But he welcomed us back. Then we had Woody right at the beginning. Goes and sits down on the bench in front of the Belmont Pine, which I didn't realize was a big landmark. I guess it is. But he sits down there and kind of waxes poetic about what's to come.
Yeah, just like the way both these guys, Whitaker and Haywood, sort of weave their words and stuff like that. They're almost like prepared speeches for every segment. I mean, I can't describe it enough till you go back and watch it. And what I thought was funny, Ben, is when Whitaker first came on the screen, it sounded like a helicopter was the bed of music under him, but it was actually the sound a horse makes, when it's coming, when it's racing.
Right.
And at first I thought it sounded like a helicopter. I'm like, why is there what is that noise in the background? And then you listen more and you can figure it out. But it's just funny how in these broadcasts, how far technology has advanced since then.
Yeah. Could you imagine just picking horse feet as the sound that you wanted underneath?
And they did it several times in this telecast also.
Yeah, they did.
That wasn't the only time.
So they kind of set up the Triple Crown. Obviously, this is the big story here. They're covering it pretty well. They went back and showed a couple other horses that had a chance for the Triple Crown. And I was pretty surprised. They showed Tim Tam's race. I don't remember which year it was. But they showed him actually you can't really tell in the video. It's kind of grainy now, but he broke his leg during the race heading out of the final turn. And they showed it. Like, here, we'll watch him as he comes out of here. He breaks his leg, and you can see him kind of start to get a little shaky down the stretch. I was like, well, I can't believe they showed that.
Yeah, yeah. The
I'm
license to show.
assuming like Tim Tam was put down maybe afterwards. I did not look it up, but like that's usually what happens, right?
Yeah, yeah. What they would show in 1973 is completely different than what they would show now. And great horse name though, Tim Tam.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I have no idea what it's referring to, but
yeah, I have no idea either. But yeah, so they showed a couple of horses that didn't have the wherewithal to finish it out and get to the finish line. But good news is though, Tim Tam did not get put down on the track, Mike. So that is the good news from this. But I was surprised they showed that. So it's good. But have you ever had the Tim Tam Australian like cookies?
no.
Are you familiar with those?
When would I ever have Australian cookies?
You can find them here now. Like they sell them.
okay.
They sell them in the States. They're really good actually. But they were named after the horse. That's pretty surprising.
Ben, a big Tim Tam cookie guy. Look what we learned today.
Who would have known that Australian cookie would have named it after a horse that raced in the 50s? Who would have known, Mike? But there you go. So yeah, we get that early on. But then the best part of this whole broadcast early on was Chick Anderson introducing the field. Right, this has been maybe one of the highlights of going back to these races. But he's standing in a room. He's got kind of the board behind him. He's going through the field. There's only 5 total horses. One of them scratched. There's only 5 now. But when he gets done introducing all the horses, they kind of pull out on the camera. And you see that he's in like a room where the jockeys are getting weighed. And it was a very awkward sequence because the jockeys were actually coming up and getting weighed right in front of him. He's literally standing maybe a foot away, maybe not. Like he's like breathing on them as they're getting weighed. And then as they step off, he's like, hey, can I grab you for a second? And he interviewed every jockey that way.
Yeah, he interviewed every jockey that way. First of all, getting back to how when he was introducing the lineup here real quick, the only thing clear on that poster board or whatever it was the horse that was scratched. It said scratched in big, bold black letters. That was really the only part you could really read.
Right.
I thought that was funny. But yeah, so what Ben's describing is the jockeys go get weighed and then they come off the scale. And literally when they're coming off the scale, going to race the biggest race of their lives, you have Chick Anderson there saying, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And the jockeys looked like they weren't even prepped for like Chick being there. They were all like surprised to see him. He kind of sidled up alongside of him like Elaine in that Seinfeld episode with the wrestling shoes.
Yeah.
And you could tell like they were trying to like walk by him with their head down, like when you try to do that so someone doesn't call on you. That's like what they were trying to do to Chick, but he stopped all of them and interviewed them right there, right when they got off the scale. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I didn't really learn a whole lot during those interviews, but it was definitely interesting to see him in that room. Like, I guess they couldn't have coordinated that a little bit better, and I'm guessing that the window they had to broadcast was very short, so they had to just kind of fit it in where it could. But yeah, I don't think we ever get to see the jockeys weighed either. So that was interesting to kind of see them in that position, but them holding their saddles, and then coming off and he's grabbing them. But yeah, it was very, very interesting setup for sure. But then we go onto the track, and again, it's the same thing. Woody's down there interviewing all of the trainers as they're getting ready to mount and go out to the track.
Yeah. Now, first of all, is this the first time we had Woody and Jack weaving in between the stables?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they're together now, weaving in between the stables. And I thought the biggest character they interviewed during this was John Campo.
Right.
The last trainer they interviewed. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
That guy seemed like he was a good time.
They were buddies too.
Yeah. He was friends with Jack Whitaker. Something tells me they enjoyed some bourbons back in the day together.
They threw a few back probably sometime after this race. But they got them all set up. Again, this race, Secretariat was a clear favorite. You had Sham still in it. Sham was again the horse that competed as much as you could have against Secretariat in the first 2 races. So he was the horse that maybe was going to challenge. But you also, in this race, had Twice a Prince, who, from the Kentucky Derby, as you remember, was the one that had a tough time getting into his starting gate, and they had to let him out. So that was part of the questioning going in, is your horse calm and cool to get into the gate today? But otherwise, Mike, like, they didn't make it sound like there was much of a threat going into this race.
Yeah, even Lafitte Pinkai, when he did his off the scale interview with Chick Anderson, he didn't seem too convinced that his horse could hang with Secretariat. And at least it's the first time I've seen in a horse race where almost everyone's kind of admitting defeat before the race even happens.
Yeah.
But One thing of note in the pre leading up to the race here, Ben, did you see the interview with the Tweedy family?
Yeah, that was interesting.
All right, so I thought it was funny that, first of all, Penny's the only one with personality in that whole family, right? And they mentioned that the little boy has hay fever, the younger boy that was there. I thought I was like, hay fever, man. I haven't heard, it's basically allergies, isn't it?
I guess. That sounds, it's like a 1920s disease, you would think.
Yeah. I was like, man, I haven't heard the term hay fever since like a commercial in the 80s, like for allergy medicine or something. But that interview was I thought was interesting. It was kind of funny, but you have these kids kind of put on the spot in an interview on national TV with their family. And when the horses were coming out on the track, Ben, I thought it was funny. Jack Whitaker says, "Man, wait till the crowd sees Secretariat. Like, they're going to erupt for him."
Yeah.
And there was literally like no difference in cheering when he came on the track.
I noticed that too.
That was a funny scene too.
I don't know if the audio just didn't pick it up or if they literally just didn't react to him coming out there. But yeah, you could not tell a difference. If you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't tell a difference. The other thing about when they went on the track, the one thing along this whole process is I've been listening to the music, right? The song they play as you go on the track.
I know where you're going with this.
Dude, they played Sidewalks of New York. No idea what that song is and no idea when that changed.
So I Googled it. Because I was like, Sidewalks of New York. How could I have grown up in the New York area and never heard of this? So obviously when you think of Triple Crown races, you think of the two songs we've talked about in the previous two episodes, right? You think of My Old Kentucky Home and you think of Maryland, My Maryland, right? Well, the Sidewalks of New York was used as the Belmont song until 1996. So
wow, that late.
That's probably why we don't know it though,
Yeah.
I don't know what if they've put in its place, but
I think it's just dun 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 dun.
Oh, is it?
I think that's what it is. But yeah, I think so. But yeah, that song was popular in about life in New York in the 1890s. So it had been around for a while, but I did not remember when they played it.
No, I still. That's the only time I've ever heard it. Let's put it that way.
It's also known as East Side, West Side, in case you were curious, Mike. But that was interesting when that happened. But they came out on the track and they get ready to go, and we're already into this race. Listen, I think I told you before in the previous episode. I don't think I'd seen the race start to finish. I'd seen obviously the final 30 seconds of the race, 45 seconds of the race, coming out of that final turn or into that final turn and out of it down the stretch. But to see the entire race with Secretariat breaking out. It's kind of a slower break is normal, right? Just kind of out of the gate, just kind of trotting along. Shams on the outside has to kind of race to the front. I think Sham knew, like, I've got to get out here and kind of try to set the tone and keep up as much as possible. But, I mean, it's immediate. Like, he just takes off and is just running, and he's outpacing the field in no time. I mean, like, out of the first turn, he's already created, like, 10 lengths out from the rest of the field. Sham's keeping up. But you do watch it, and you're like, man, Sham. It seems like Sham's given everything he's got to kind of keep up neck to neck. Sham had a little bit of a lead briefly there, on the backstretch, but the power and the ease with which Secretariat ran that race was incredible.
And this is I never knew who was on the call here for this iconic moment, and we know now it's Chick Anderson, of course. But this is when you have Chick Anderson when Secretariat's coming around the backstretch, headed for home. This is the legendary Secretariat by 5, Secretariat by 12. Referring to the lengths that he's in front of the field, and that's the first iconic part of this run down the stretch here by Secretariat is Chick Anderson's call. The second iconic is how wide the camera had to pan out for you to be able to see Secretariat and the field behind him.
That's incredible.
Okay? I think that's the second thing we think of when we think of this. And the third thing we think of, in my opinion, is we don't see it in the television broadcast, but there's an iconic picture of Ron Turcotte when he's way ahead of the field, sort of looking back to see where everyone is.
Yeah.
Those are the three things to me about this moment that, make it go from historical sports moment to like iconic sports moment. Secretariat, of course, wins. Of note, Sham comes in last place.
Yeah.
But Secretariat smashes the record, beats it by 2 3/5 seconds. And everyone tell me your take, but it seemed like everyone at the track got the result they were expecting, but they were still stunned at how dominant it was.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not be? I mean, you mentioned when you're watching that race and they're going into that final turn and Sham's starting to fade, and Chick's doing the call with the links, which God bless him, because I don't know how you keep up with with that many links and try to estimate it as you go. But yeah, you can't you just to get to second, not forget the rest of the pack, which is starting to catch up to Sham, but just to get to second, you saw like almost that full turn. It was pretty incredible to watch. But yeah, then Sham gets overtaken because I think Sham gave it everything he had for about 2/3 of that race and just couldn't keep up at all, and everybody eventually passed him. But yeah, I mean, down that stretch, I think Secretariat could have run 2 miles at that pace. It seemed like he wasn't slowing down as they crossed the finish line. Like he's still kind of pulling away from those other horses. It was remarkable to see him finish. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how good the rest of those horses were, but I do know that Sham, who kept up with Secretariat for the most part, the first 2 legs of this, just I mean. You saw that he was spent by the time they got to this point. The Triple Crown was just done.
Yeah, and they always talk about, and people get sick about it, like, it's a test of the horse's endurance, And you have both these horses running in all 3 races, and, in the end, one dominated and one sort of, like you said, I just think he was tired. Mm-hmm. So Secretariat wins by 31 lengths.
Crazy.
A number that's pretty popular. If horse racing fans will know that number, 31 lengths. Haywood described it as a triumphal one-horse procession, which I thought was again, a very Haywood way to put it.
Yeah.
And, we get interviews with everyone afterwards, with Turcotte, with Lucien Lauren, with Penny Tweedy. We get kind of a sense of, in the moment, how everyone involved felt. And you could just tell they were all kind of just, their jaws were on the floor at this horse and what he had just done.
Yeah, 31 lengths, broke the track record by more than 2 seconds. So they estimated that he would have beaten the previous track record holder by 13 lengths. I mean, wow. It's just stupid. And he became the 9th Triple Crown winner, first in 25 years since Citation, and made history. But yeah, they actually went through each of the races afterwards too on the broadcast with everyone, just kind of reliving the entire Triple Crown. It's a pretty cool moment, but just an impressive victory start to finish. And look, I think all in all, I enjoyed doing this entire sequence, Mike, to kind of see how the coverage of Secretariat developed through the year, to see how the broadcast changed from race to race, to kind of get more familiar with the broadcasters on the race. I think it's pretty fun to do this entirely, and I recommend anybody go back through it and watch all 3. I mean, each one's like an hour, so it's not that much time, and actually experience it as it happened that year.
Yeah, if you're a lover of classic sports moments, which you have to be if you listen to this podcast, you have to go back and watch this, even if you're not a horse racing fan. And going back to these broadcasts, I mean, I thought, honestly, people just equate like, 1973, how good could the broadcast be? I thought there was some elements of the broadcast that were even better than current day broadcasts, minus all the technology and the HD TV and things like that, obviously. But
yeah,
I thought there was a lot of good points to this broadcast, and I highly recommend it as well. Like Ben said, a must watch.
Bring back the jockey interviews off the scale, right?
Yeah,
you want that to happen.
Bring back like the sense of, we're getting what these people think, like right in the moment.
Yeah,
like before the race.
We get some of that.
Race.
We get some of that.
Yeah,
we do. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, anything else on this race, Mike? We'll close it out.
No. One thing of note. Keep in mind here the competition for Secretariat as it compared to Citation. 26,000 thoroughbreds were born in potential thoroughbreds were born in 1973, okay, as compared to 8,000 Citation's year, bred to become point. Thoroughbreds. So the competition level much higher in numbers for Secretariat. So I think that makes the accomplishment even more eye-popping.
Yeah, I mean, that's why he's considered the greatest race ever. And as you said early on in our coverage of this, ESPN had him as one of the best athletes of all time, which is still crazy. But it was fun to go back and watch it. We'll have it on our website, distantreplaypodcast.com. Also on YouTube, you can find us there as well. We'll have this episode up. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about it as well. And Twitter and Instagram, all the ways you can connect with us. We appreciate you listening to this episode, Mike, and we'll look forward to another one here soon.
Yeah, we'll get back on our normal schedule here next week with episodes. Looking forward to seeing what you guys think of those, and much more to come. And until next time.